to see you this week. I'm excited for today's lesson, and I'm glad that you are here to listen and see what happens with David. So last week we talked about how David was just a little guy, he was a little boy, and Samuel has chosen him to be the next king over Israel. He's so little. And it just so happened that King Saul needed someone to come and play some music for him to make him feel better after the Lord had left him. So lo and behold, David was an amazing musician, and they brought him in for King Saul, and he's been playing the harp for King Saul and making him feel better. And then he goes back to watch the sheep for his father. So he goes back and forth playing the harp and being a little shepherd boy. So this week, big things are happening. So this week, King Saul has found himself in battle with the Philistines, and they are big and bad, and the Israelites are kind of scared of them. And King Saul is like trying to figure out what he needs to do. And so the Philistines are just kind of making fun of the Israelites. They've got this really, really big, tall, big dude on their side, and he's undefeated. He's a champion, and nobody's ever been able to do anything to him. And so they put him out in front, and he was teasing them and telling them, come send me somebody that you think that can defeat me. I'm big, and y'all aren't going to be able to do anything about that. And his name was Goliath. So Goliath was just teasing the Israelites, ha ha ha, y'all can't do anything. And they were scared. I mean, he was kind of right. They were scared. They didn't think that they could defeat him. So they were just kind of holding back, not really sure what they needed to do. And so David was, while all this was going on, all this battle and everything was happening, David was in the field with the sheep at their father's house. And his brothers were actually in battle. They were in the army with the Israelites. So David's father brought him some supplies like food and stuff like that. And he said, here, I need you to go take all of these things to your brothers. They're on the battlefield, they need this stuff. So David gathered up everything, and he went to the battle and found his brothers and handed over the supplies to them. And he heard what the Philistines were saying about God's army. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. He told his brothers and everybody around him, he's like, who is this guy that thinks that he can talk that way about the armies of the living God? Who does he think he is? He can't win. Well, saying that kind of made everybody kind of mad because they were scared of him, and they just, I guess, didn't think David understood. And they got really upset with him, and his brothers even told him, said, all you wanted to do was come here and see the battle. You don't actually want to do anything. And who's taking care of our sheep, by the way? You need to go back home. And David couldn't believe it. Why is this happening? So word got back to King Saul that David was saying these things. So King Saul sent for David. And when David came to him, he said, let me go beat him. This is crazy. He can't say these things about the armies of the living God. He can't do that. There's no way. He said, I can go defeat him. Let me go do it. And at first, King Saul said, no, you're little, you're very small, and this guy's huge. There's no way you can do that. He will defeat you. And David said, no, listen, I have taken care of my sheep, my father's sheep, and they have been attacked. They've been attacked by lions and bears, and I chased after the lions and the bears, and I knew that God was with me. And I went and I defeated the lions and the bears, and I don't have a mark on me. God defeated those things for me. I know that God will be with me in defeating this guy, and he will fall. So Saul couldn't really argue with that. How do you argue with God? So he said, okay, all right, well, God be with you, and all right, you go ahead, do that. So Saul actually put all this armor on David because he liked David. He brought him some peace whenever he would play the harp for him, and he didn't want him to get hurt. So he put all of this armor on top of David and wanted to make sure that he was protected. And David went to try to walk, and the armor was too heavy. It was too big because David's this little guy. So he couldn't walk with it. It's like, this is ridiculous. So he took off all the armor and he picked up his slingshot and 5 stones. And he went to find the Philistines with those in hand. So he goes up, walks towards the Philistines, and sees Goliath. And Goliath can't believe it. He's like, you're sending this little guy over here to try to defeat me? Really? What are y'all thinking? So David told Goliath, all these people are going to see you fall. And when they do, they will understand that God doesn't have to use swords to defeat the enemy. Right? Pretty cool. So David took his slingshot. He had 5 stones, right? He took one of those stones and he stretched that slingshot back and he aimed and let go, and it hit Goliath right on the forehead and he fell. The crowd was silent. What just happened? And so David went up to Goliath and stood over him, and he said, the Lord did this. God did this. From now on, everybody will know that let them remember, let them be reminded, God is the one who fights our battles. This wasn't me. See, David understood it wasn't him. And he wasn't going to fight for just the Israelites or even for King Saul. He was going to fight with the Lord. He was going to fight for God. See, they were making fun of God's army and therefore making fun of God. And that wasn't okay with David. So he was going to battle for his brothers and all of them, but he was going to fight for the name of God. So he defeated Goliath, with God, of course. And Goliath fell, and guess what the rest of the Philistine army did? They got super scared and ran away. They ran. They couldn't believe it. They were like, oh, we don't want any part of this. They ran away. And the army was defeated because David knew that God was with him. He was on his side and he was going to fight this guy for him. And he did. So he had 5 stones, but he only needed 1. So that is really, really cool. That's one of my favorites. David and Goliath is one of those lessons that we just always should think about every single day, because David understood that he had God with him and he would fight his battles for him, and he would fight in the name of the Lord. And that's what we should do every day also. So I love that story. I'm so glad that that was part of our lesson today. And we will see you guys next week. We're going to see some more of David, and I'm really excited to see what else he does. And I hope you are too. So we will see you next week. Bye.